Hi BookTube. This was supposed to be a Friday Reads, but it is now a currently reading because I was just exhausted Friday. Yeah, I had a hard time staying awake. So this is now Saturday and I actually have the day off, so I'm excited. I'm just going to talk about what I read this week. It's the beginning of the month, and what I decided to do was just to read one chapter of all the books on my TBR, and just to kind of get a feel for them and see which ones I wanted to pick up first and which ones I thought I could leave a little later. Oh, and just to see if any of them just didn't fit with what I wanted to read. So I did finish a book. I finished Indian Horse by Richard Wagamese, and wow. I read most of it in one I'd say sitting, but I was lying down, so we called it one lying. Yeah, oh man, that is about a young boy whose family is trying to initially hide him from getting taken from residential schools, but then he ends up getting put in a residential school, and then he discovers hockey, and that's his way of working through things, and he goes on afterwards, and the problems with playing hockey in, I believe it's probably the 1970s at that time, so there's a lot of racism against Indigenous people, and getting into, you know, the NHL and just even like playing in tournaments and stuff like that, and then some realizations that happened afterwards about his experience in residential school, and it was just so compelling to read. And that's horrible to say because a lot of the stuff that happens in this book is stuff that happened in real life, and it's horrible. But I don't want to get too much into it because spoilers and stuff, but I highly recommend that book. And another book I decided to be finished with, I didn't finish it, I got about 50% through and decided I couldn't do it anymore. And if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know that I initially started off really loving this book. And that is Beauty is a Wound by Kurniawan, and I love and still love the narrative structure, and the writing. It was so good. The narrative structure, like each chapter would begin at like, take a character from the previous chapter and start at the end of their story, or like where they currently are in the story, and then go back and tell their story. And it was just so like, I really liked the way it was done, that we start at the end and then we go back, and you know, it was all over the place time-wise, and you know, getting to learn more about Indonesia. So it's kind of like the history of Indonesia from, I believe, 1930s. It could have gone back further than that, with the way it was done, kind of like backwards storytelling. But probably about the early 1930s, and I think I got up to like the 1960s or so before I was just like, I have to stop. And the reason I had to stop was because it got really repetitive. He'd reuse a lot of the same plots over and over again, and a lot of those plots were rape, and it just got to the point where there was one really detailed rape scene, and I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore, and why should I do this? You know, I'm enjoying the narrative structure, I'm enjoying the writing, but I'm not enjoying the plot. Yeah, so miss on my part. I decided to pick up a different book, and excuse me while I was gonna look up her last name, but I can't. I don't know how quick I can do it. Anyways, that'd be The Grey House by Mariam Petrosyan, I believe her name is, and it's seems to be like a care home. But it's like magical realism. If you look at the cover, I'll put a picture in here. It's a picture of a house kind of on this weird floating rock thing. I don't know exactly what that is. And it just seemed really cool that these people are, you know, disabled or old, or, you know, have some reason to be in a care home, and the outside is threatening to come in. So that sounds really cool to me. And that's, I think it was like around 37 hours. But I spend probably that much time in the car that I'll be able to get through it. So let's get on to some of the physical books I have here. A big stack of books that I've decided to concentrate on. I'm one of those people who like constantly have multiple books on the go. And this one, I've already said I'm going to take 6 months to read this, so it's a really slow going. This is my reread of Ulysses by James Joyce, and I know a lot of people are trying to tackle this year, and I just want to say you shouldn't jump right into this. You should read A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man first, because it comes first. It's like a part of a series. I think of it as a series in my head. So you'd start with Dubliners, but you can kind of skip Dubliners. I wouldn't, because the writing is beautiful in Dubliners, but that's a whole other story. If you want to get to Ulysses faster, you can skip Dubliners. I wouldn't recommend it, but do it. But you have to read A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, because this picks off right where that stops. Like, we go right back into Stephen Daedalus after the events at the end of that book, and so there's spoilers if you care about spoilers. I don't know if you do in regards to like literary fiction, but yeah, and there's things that you won't necessarily pick up on, the constant references to the sea and what that means, how that's significant to Stephen. And I know Harold Bloom is touted as the main character of this, but James Joyce loves Stephen Daedalus. Let's just put that right out there. He's all sorts of in love with Stephen Daedalus. So he features hugely in this book. So yeah, I definitely recommend that. Anyways, yeah, I just finished the first episode, Telemachus, and I have some notes written in here. I don't know exactly how I'm going to approach this, making videos about it, but we'll see as I go along. Maybe some ideas will come. One of my one of my Christmas presents for my brother is The First Sister by Linden A. Lewis, and I've been reading this. It's a science fiction about 3 people on different sides of the war, it seems. So we have Earth, Mars, and the Moon are known as the Geans, and then Venus and Mercury are known as another group. I can't remember. Oh, the Icari. And they're like constantly at war. They don't get along at all. And we follow First Sister, who is kind of like a comfort woman, but it's all wrapped up in religion as well. And she wants to not be a comfort woman anymore. And then we follow 2 soldiers, Hero, Valakira, and what's the other guy's name? Leto Sol Lucius. And First Sister is just known as First Sister. And they were like intimate friends. Like, they were so in love with each other, but I don't know if it went beyond platonic love. But Hero has become a traitor, and so Leto was sent after him, and it's really interesting hearing all the different sides of this war going on. So I definitely am enjoying that one. I'm also making my way through the 3rd book in Jerusalem by Alan Moore. I just blasted through like 50 pages all at once. So the beginning of the 3rd book is a little weird. We get the perspective of a builder, I believe, which in the case of Jerusalem is kind of like angels who are responsible for creating the world in the most basic sense. In the 2nd chapter we get Alma Warren, who is featured in the 1st book and is the sister of the dead kid in the 2nd book, and her as an older woman going through a day in her life. And the 3rd chapter, which I'm just getting to now, is actually Lucia Joyce, the daughter of James Joyce, who I say jokingly, I know it's not, I probably shouldn't joke about it, but I say she went crazy from transcribing Ulysses for her father. But she's in a mental institution. And we're getting her perspective in this. Jerusalem is just like a massive book about everything. I've talked about it more in my whatchamacallit, my TBR about it. And then my reread, I've picked up, and I read a whole chunk of it. I think I read 100 pages. I read more than 100 pages because I'm at page 142, and I started at page 18 in one day. I love Anita Badami. She's so easy to read. Can You Hear the Nightbird Call? And this is about a variety of different Indian women, and it starts I think 1930s again, before partition, and talks about women going over to North America, Vancouver specifically, immigrating there with their family. And then we are now just getting into the perspective of one of the women who was left behind. Yeah, it is such a good story. I love this story so much. It's just like this big epic tale that starts in the 1930s, concentrates mostly on partition, like the lead up to partition and the effects of that after, and then ends in 1985 with the Air Flight India 182. Yeah, Air India Flight 182, which was coming from Canada going to India but exploded off the coast of Ireland. Yeah, it's an amazing, amazing story, and really well written. So that's what I'll be reading this week, and probably picking up some other stuff along the ways. I think I'm going to pick up a graphic novel soon. And that's it. Let me know what you're reading down below, and thank you for watching.